Hello everybody. So today I am going to refashion this striped dress tunic, whatever you think. I found it at Savers. It's navy and white. Nice thick stripes. I love stripes, and these thick ones are super trendy, and I can't really get any ready to wear dresses or tunics just because I'm so tall and the lines don't hit me at the right place. The waist is too high, everything's too short, too high. So anyway, I found this and I'm going to turn it into a shirt. And oh, also the sleeves are a little too tight because it has these bands that they folded up, so the seam allowance is inside this band. So the band is too tight, so I'm thinking that I'm going to take them off so that so they won't be so tight. What I'm going to do is I'm currently taking off the sleeve bands because they were too tight on my sleeves, or on my arms. Maybe I have really big arms. So I'm taking off the bands to make them less tight on my arms. I'm hoping that will make it loose and it won't be so tight. And you know, sometimes I think I can try something and like I'm going to take this sleeve band off and it's going to make everything change and everything's going to be good. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way I thought it was going to be, or maybe it's still too tight or something. And so sometimes you kind of have to try and realize you're going to make mistakes and it's going to be hard and you never quite know how it's going to go. So, but that's okay. That's why we sew, and that's why refashioning and upcycling is so great, because sometimes it's just cleaning out your closet. You're not buying anything, and if it gets messed up or it doesn't work the way you thought and you have to throw it away or cut it up for scraps, you don't really use any money, and that's okay because you're learning and everyone makes mistakes, and it's okay if we make mistakes. That's just how it is. And it's great if you just use something you have and then you have to throw it away and you didn't spend any money on it, because then you didn't spend any money, but it doesn't work. Anyway, so here is the dress that I'm working on. So this was the original sleeve, and it's a band and it's too tight on my arms, and so I have taken one off. So see how that's off. And I have already put this on. I put this on before the video, and I marked, if you can see, can you see that? This is where I want it, when I cut it, this is where I want it to end. And I like to use tailor's chalk. It's kind of like a waxy chalk, and when you iron it, it just disappears. So that's my favorite way of marking. I mark all my patterns and everything, I mark it that way just because I don't have time for tailor's tacks. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm also thinking I'm going to cut this hem off and I'm going to hem it, and I'm going to use what I cut off the bottom to add gathered bell sleeves on my shirt. So I cut that off, and this is now the length of my shirt. So anyway, this is the shirt. I cut it off, and so I need to hem this. I probably won't do it on here just because it takes me a while to set up my twin needle. We'll see how much time, if you guys are still interested. And I'm going to cut the part this part that I cut off the bottom. I'm going to cut it into two pieces, and I'm going to gather it and put it onto the sleeves. So if you notice, so each side has, I don't even know what you call that kind of stitching, but I think it's like a cover stitch that does that, where it's serged on the inside and then it has like a top stitching serging or something. So it has it on both sides, but it also has it in the back. And so I need to be careful to make sure that this back piece will not end up on, I don't want it to be on the top of a bell sleeve. Does that make sense? So I was saying earlier that when you're refashioning, you never quite know what you're going to get into, and you kind of have to make it work. You have make it work moments as you're going. And so since I have a back seam, and you don't always have a back seam when you cut something off, that's something I'm going to have to pay attention to so that it doesn't end up, I don't want it to show, because it would only be on one sleeve if I cut it on the sides. So I'm going to think, how would I cut it so that you don't see that? Let me think for a second. Cut that there. So I'm going to cut it. So this is the front, this is the back. So I'm holding the two side seams. I'm going to twist it so that, so there's two seams right here and one seam right here. And I'm going to cut it down the middle right here, which makes, you're still kind of going to be able to see these seams, but they'll be more, they'll be closer to the seam underneath the sleeve, and so you won't see it as much. So here I go, I'm going to cut that, make sure that's folding. So I cut that right in the middle. So this is one piece. So see how I still have those seams? But if I gather this, if I'm going to do this and I gather it, then it's not right on the top. It's more kind of underneath. So I'm going to sew up this seam. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam with my stretch stitch. And I'm going to sew one of these sleeves together. So I sewed that with the zigzag, and this is what it looks like from the outside. So there's my seam. And yes, if you pull it, you can see I'm using navy thread, but I don't care that much. It's all about, I'd rather get done quicker than, change my thread all the time. So I'm going to serge that really fast, and then I'm going to do a gathering stitch along the top. The serge. You don't have to serge if it's knits. If you don't have a serger, you don't have to do it. I just do it to have a cleaner finish on the inside. But it's not very important if you are working with knits. And then what I like to do, so I leave a little tail. This is a hem right here. So this is the finished edge. And this, I don't like to leave that, and I often find that my serging kind of pulls out. So what I like to do is I will tuck my serging under like this, like I tuck it on next to the seam, and then I fold that seam over top so that the serging, at least at the top, is tucked inside. And then I do a little tack on the front, so it's tacking the seam allowance to face one way, and it tacks that serging inside. So here I'll show you what it looks like from the inside. Let me trim this. So see how this is tacked down, and there are serger threads that are coming out, but they can't come up towards the hem. So when you're looking at it from the outside, it just looks like that, and you can't tell that it's serged or tacked. It's just nice and pretty like that. So now I'm going to add a gathering stitch along the top edge. So they say you should do more than one, and you really should to get a nice gather, but I'm often lazy and I did just one. And I don't really have a problem with my seam with my thread breaking when I gather, because I'm not gathering, you know, like 6 yards into a small amount. So I don't often have a problem with the threads breaking. You don't get a nice gather when you only use one stitch, but sometimes you're in a hurry, and so, you know, it's okay. Let's see. So you're going to do right sides. So here's your sleeve. And you're going to put your bell sleeve on right sides together. So this is my sleeve, and I'm going to slide it on here, and I'm going to match up the seam of my bell to the underarm, the side seam of the original sleeve. Just like that, and then I'm gonna pin it. So this is my sleeve, this is my bell. So it's not way larger, it's not like a very dramatic bell sleeve, it's just something fun. I'm just gathering the bell right now. So I have this gathered on, and I pinned it around. It's not super gathered because it wasn't a lot larger than the sleeve, but I think it will work out just fine once it's sewed on. So I'm going to use my favorite stitch. So one tip that I think is really great when you're sewing, I don't know if any of you have been around long enough to remember a time when I posted this, but I always wear scissors around my neck because then it's just easy to grab whenever I need it, and then it's just always there. So here is my bell sleeve. Oh, see, look, that poked out, so I'm going to have to unpick it and put that back in. But here is my first bell sleeve. Look how cute that is. Look how easy that was. That was so easy. So you can see the stitching, but that's okay. It's farther underneath. It's not right on top. But that's the first sleeve. Wow, that's so cute. I didn't realize it would be so cute. And I have some of the gathering stitch I'm going to have to take off, or I guess I could just do a little deeper seam allowance, and then I wouldn't have to do it. So I would serge it and then do the other side. But thanks for watching.